Hi, I'm Heather Clancy here in the GreenBiz studio with Mitch Toomey, the Director of Sustainability for BASF. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've been with the company for about, I don't know, just a few months.
It's been 3 months now, yeah.
And you were with the UN for a long time. Prior to that, about 15 years.
That's right.
Most recently in charge of the global campaign to help promote adoption at the corporate level of the Sustainable Development Goals.
That's right. Yeah.
Building strategy around them. What prompted that leap?
Well, I think the fundamental point that we were seeing in the UN while negotiating these big goals is that while the kind of governments and leaders can articulate where what the vision is, to actually implement something that has substantive change, you have to get it right inside the mainstream economy. Mm-hmm. And so private sector firms are where all the action is, and I think that once we got this great agreement in 2015 with all the governments of the world finally coming to consensus on this more broad description of what sustainability is, not just the environmental issues, but also the social issues and how economies function. That agreement now stands, and there's goals for 2030, but there's a lot of work to do. And I found that BASF is an organization that has influence and market position in so many different industries, and it actually has the right mission. It's aligned with the goals, and so it's fantastic to jump back into the private sector where I had been before and bring these goals to reality.
So obviously, this company has had a sustainability mindset for a very long time. And using the SDGs as a framework for future change is important. But how do you start that process? Because it's not like they haven't been doing great things before. Right. How do you remap, if you will, the priorities?
Well, I think the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, were kind of just capturing what was in the wind. I mean, companies like BASF have been looking at, obviously, the environmental impact, which is so important, but also what the BASF calls the full value to society. I mean, how do you capture the full value that an organization like that actually has, not just on the products it sells and so on, but on the lives of the workers and those in the supply chain and elsewhere. And so I think it's very practically an easy mapping exercise to look and compare where the goals of the organization overlap with those larger goals. And in some areas, not every company is going to be tackling every of the 17 SDGs, but it helps provide a kind of a lingua franca so that when companies talk to each other, they could say, hey, I'm actually working on that goal as well. And it starts a kind of a more open conversation about these things, because sustainability has been defined differently by lots of different organizations. Different companies tackle it in different ways. But having that common frame of reference really helps not just companies, but working with NGOs, working with governments, looking at society as a whole. So as you said, BASF has been working on sustainability in many ways for really its entire existence, 150 years of finding efficiencies and finding the best way to do things. They've cut the emissions, for example, over the past 20 years in half while continuing to grow as a business. But as I joined, coincidentally in December, the new strategy was launched for the company, a 5-year strategy that put sustainability right in the core of the strategy, looking at the greenhouse gas emissions, but also in shaping the portfolio of products that we sell to emphasize those that actually have significant sustainability value. So it was a great kind of very fast onboarding for me, because it matched so well with the kind of bigger mission of sustainability.
Yeah. I think that many sustainability professionals equate the field with environmental factors, and you brought in the very real aspect of human rights. So right. What advice, given your background, would you give to other companies that are trying to layer in that element into their program?
I think it's companies respond to market signals. Markets are created by consumer demand, just the same way that politicians listen to their constituents, their voters. People need to express their dignity. We're working in a world now where more and more automation is unfolding. The place of the worker, the place of the consumer is at once questioned and shifting, but at the same time the people are being empowered like never before. You look at advocacy movements. It used to require significant kind of centralized organization by advocacy organizations, when now people can join into movements posts on social media and other platforms on their own volition. So I think taking into account the kind of the human dignity factors of the customer, the worker, the suppliers, workers, all the way down to we do extractive industry work with the miners and others, and you really want to make sure that you're part of that human conversation. Environmental issues obviously are important, not just for humanity, but for the health of the larger planetary ecosystem. But when you want to talk about things that really matter to people outside of the kind of the traditional advocacy business, they respond very immediately to those social issues, gender equality, the inequalities that we're finding in our societies. And so it's actually an easier entry point to start talking about those environmental issues if you can touch on those bread and butter issues that everyone responds to.
Great. Well, I hope you help let people make the connection, and thank you for joining us in Green Biz Studio.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you.